Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video called 10 things in European homes Americans think are weird. My first thought in this is how weird can they be? How different can homes be? It's still a home, they're still human, but I don't know, there's 10 things, so I'm a little intrigued by this. So let's check it out and comment, like, and subscribe.
Here are 10 things that Americans find, well, weird about European homes.
How weird can it be?
Number 1, the laundry situation. Having a washing machine next to your pots and pans in the kitchen or sometimes in the bathroom definitely makes us Americans do a double take.
Yeah, because of the US homes usually have a laundry room, but I think it's about space.
Most homes in the US have a dedicated laundry room or a utility closet or a garage or something that the washer and dryer are kept in. Now, for many European homes, a washer or a combo washer and dryer is in the kitchen because that's where there is already some plumbing.
But I've seen this in other parts of the world, not just Europe, so I think it's just smaller homes, maybe?
And electricity to be able to extend to the washing machine. Not only that, but
logically, it makes sense. I don't know if practically it makes sense.
So many homes in Europe don't actually have a dryer at all. Or if they do have one, it's smaller and it's used for washing their bed linens and things like that. Whereas in America, we're used to shoving like a cargo load of clothing in there.
I think the dryer is probably a very American concept. I don't think a lot of places in Europe own dryers just because the electrical bill would skyrocket.
And having it done in an hour, as opposed to hanging it out on lines inside or outside the house.
And yes, in contrast, no one in the US is hanging their stuff. No one uses a dryer.
It used to be more common, but I'd say as a standard, we're pretty much accustomed to using our washer and dryer to do all of our laundry all the time. Number 2 on our list, no window screens. This is a big one. In America, we have screens everywhere on every window.
That depends. There are places where that's not really that common, I think. Probably, yes. Places in Chicago, I don't think I think it's weird. Places in New York, it just depends on where you live. It's because of the bugs, basically.
Totally accustomed to that because we don't want to deal with flies at all. Mosquitoes in particular, house flies, anything like that. But in Europe, you'll be hard pressed to find any windows with screens in them.
There are no bugs.
In a lot of places we found that you don't actually need screens because there's not really an issue with bugs. And in other places it feels like, man, you really need some screens in here because there are bugs everywhere. So regardless of whether you think they should or shouldn't be there, for us as Americans, it just seems weird not to have that. This is going to turn us into acknowledge the fact that trying to encompass all of Europe in one list is a little bit rough, right? It's kind of hard to put all of these different cultures.
Yeah, I know that probably Europeans hate this, where you sort of group the whole continent of Europe in just one thing. Yeah, each country is separate. I know.
Languages, histories, and different people into one bucket. So I fully acknowledge that. And to all of my European friends, if there are any corrections that need to be made,
it's more of a generalized concept of Europe
on this list, or experiences that you have that are different from what we're talking about here, feel free to leave those in the comments to educate both me and the rest of us watching. Number 3 on our list are plugs and switches. These are very different for us when we travel to Europe because there are so many things that are different compared to what we're used to.
What is that?
I'll be the first to admit we are the odd man out when it comes to how we measure things using the imperial.
Yeah, but that's strange. I don't know what that situation is.
Imperial system versus metric, as well as the fact that we use 120 volt for so many appliances in America versus 240 volt, which is used almost everywhere else in the world.
I know voltages mean different things, and each country and each appliance uses something different, but I think I know the theory, but I know in practice how that works. I have no idea if it makes a difference.
Plugs here are called type A for grounded and type B for ungrounded.
Yeah.
Europe, on the other hand, uses a whole host of plug types depending on where you live, with the type F or Schuko plug being one of the most common.
I think what's tripping me about this is the round part. If it has a round thing, a round tip, what is this? I am used to a square, so what is this?
At least outside the UK and Ireland. You're also going to find type C, type E, F,
it's so small. It's weird.
J, K, and L plugs, almost all of which are actually compatible with the most universal type C. Great Britain and Ireland, for example, use type G, which is a pretty great plug for a lot of reasons.
Sort of. I think it's more, I don't know, the shape is weird, but at least it's more squared.
So much so that I actually made an entire video that you can check out right here about why that is such a great plug. That said, it's not the different types that we Americans find pretty odd about it, but how they're actually grouped together. And the fact that you
What
might
is
find
this?
a light switch and a plug and then a separate light switch all in the same plate
That's
in the
weird.
same box. Not only that, but we also consider a lot of these light switches to be upside down based on what we're used to. We're used to hitting the top
Yeah,
of the
top to
switch for
turn
the
it
lights
on.
to turn on and the bottom to turn off.
Yeah, it's backwards. Now I'm seeing it. Oh, yeah, it's backwards.
And here in Europe, it feels like it's just kind of whichever way you want to do it. Most of the
Weird.
boxes in Europe seem very compatible or interchangeable with different types of plugs, different types of switches, different types of connections, even audio-video connections.
This
I've
is-
seen boxes that are used for controlling your thermostat up and down with switches, as well as coax, Ethernet, phone wires, anything. I mean, you
What?
name it, you can put it in these different boxes. And in most cases, you can put 3 of them side by side or 2 of them side by side,
This is so confusing. Electrical things are confusing to me.
depending on the configuration of the box. And it doesn't help that we have these boxes around that actually have 3 different blanks next to each other, and they all look very similar to a traditional light switch. In
Oh.
my video that I did on British plugs or Type G plugs, I received tons of comments saying that the Schuko type is superior and is by far the best plug out there.
Why?
So I've considered this a couple times, making a video about the Schuko plug versus the Type G plug versus the American plugs. So if that's something of interest, let me know
So
in the
many
comments.
plugs.
But this is a pretty interesting one right here. Number 4 on our list is no central air conditioning, and in some cases, no air conditioning at all. Now, this one makes perfect
They don't need it, usually.
sense given the fact that there's a lot of buildings here that have been around for hundreds of years, and they predate not only the central air,
But I know that houses are old, but can't you just put a central air conditioning system in an old house? Is that impossible?
and that kind of thing, but also electricity in general. So a lot of things had to be retrofitted, and it makes sense that you're not going to be able to necessarily pipe in the vents and the registers and all of that sort of thing.
So you can't.
But one thing that we do see tons of here in Europe are mini splits. If you're not familiar with mini splits, they are super common outside the United States, and it's basically just an external condenser unit and then an internal head unit that are connected, and they can provide both heating and
Okay.
air conditioning in one unit. But they are limited to a certain room typically, or maybe a couple of rooms
Oh.
at best.
Okay.
These are everywhere in Europe, and they're super common. But another common thing is just to
I
not
don't know how common they are. It just depends on the place, I would think.
have air conditioning at all. And for us in America, at least, that's a pretty strange thing. There are very few places in America that don't have air conditioning.
Yeah.
I know I'm pretty spoiled. Like if it's 73, 74 degrees, I'm like, let's turn on that AC and get it just to that right comfortable room temperature the way we want it. Going right along with that is the lack of ceiling fans. I hardly ever see ceiling fans in Europe. They're very uncommon, whereas just about everywhere in the United States has a ceiling fan.
I don't think everywhere. It's not everywhere, but they are common. I think, isn't this an old-timey thing? I would assume newer houses do not have ceiling fans. I think it's in older houses.
Yeah. Not sure what it is or why that is, but definitely something that I miss seeing and miss having. Just that air circulation in the room
Because they open their windows, that's it.
that comes from having a ceiling fan.
I would assume.
On the topic of mini splits, I had the chance to install a mini split in my wood shop, and man, I love it. So if you are interested at all in learning about that and how easy they can be to install, and I'm not going to say it's
Easy?
like super easy.
It doesn't look easy at all.
It's definitely something that will take you probably a full day, possibly more, but it's totally worthwhile. So much so that I'm going to be doing one in my new shop, which is coming along
I'm pretty sure he has experience with this. I don't think I would be able to install this.
nicely. A much larger mini split, and that will give me full control of heating and air conditioning in there. You can check out more about those install videos right up here. Number 5, and this is in some ways the biggest one for me. It includes
What?
both the homes and everything outside the home. But in my
What?
opinion, and I think in most Americans' opinion, everything in
Yes,
Europe
agree.
is tiny. I found this pretty fascinating chart
Most European homes are tiny. The roads are tiny. Everything's small. It's weird.
that shows the different home sizes or average home sizes based on different countries. In the United
Small.
States, you can see we have a fairly large average home size, but check out the different countries in Europe. None of them come close to the sizes of homes in the United States. We simply have huge houses.
They don't
Now,
have
what's
the
interesting
space.
about this is that Europe has more than twice the amount of people as the United States, but in a geography almost the same size as the United States.
Yeah.
So twice as
People need to be crammed together, otherwise it wouldn't fit.
many people per square mile, as it were. And as a result, they've had to make adjustments and learn to live in a smaller space.
Yeah.
So for someone like
But in contrast, I think the US has there's sprawling spaces where there's just nothing there. So, I don't know.
me, at least, it feels like everything here is tiny. And that goes for their
It is.
kitchens and their beds,
No, it
the
is.
appliances, the cars, the elevators, the
That looked like a toy car.
streets, the toilets, the washing machines, the cars, the garbages, the refrigerators, the
It's so
cars.
small.
Did I mention the cars are tiny? And
Well, that car it's going to have a very hard time getting out of that parking space because it's not even bumper to bumper. They're literally touching each other.
everything else, except, of course, the flush buttons on their toilets.
What on earth
leads
is
us
that?
into item number 6 on our
What?
list, and maybe it should have been item number 2, but the large flush plates on their toilets, they're absolutely huge.
What
and
on earth?
toilets and bidets are something that we're not used to. Just to have bidets in general are definitely
Bidets, I think, are getting more popular in the US, but seriously, what's up with that huge thing? And it's that in houses, not just in public spaces.
an abnormality for us. They're becoming a little bit more common in the United States.
Yeah.
We've had one in our house actually for a couple of years. Now, the other thing about the toilets here in Europe is that there are many different kinds, whereas in the United States, we typically have one general pattern, which is the tank on top of the toilet bowl. Here, you often find either an internal cistern,
Oh,
meaning
yeah.
the tank and all its components are actually in the wall, or maybe a raised cistern
those are the old
where it's
ones.
up above, and then it uses that extra gravity to cause a little bit more pressure as the water comes down and flushes a little bit.
That's the logic behind this. I've never thought of this. I just thought it was old timey, and I don't know why people thought, I don't know, for some sort of reason that the tank up, but I don't know.
Better. The reason for these huge plates that we see everywhere here in Europe, for example, is because that's how you access the internal cistern or the tank and the different components. So you've got your flush valve, you've got your float, you've got your water supply. All of that is accessible by removing the plate, which is pretty easy to do. And then you can just unscrew a couple of pieces.
Everything he's mentioning, it's easy. I don't think it's that easy. What do you mean? I need a screwdriver?
A little bit of plastic, sometimes some screws, sometimes not, and then everything is actually accessible
there's
within
water
there,
in
which is
there?
pretty handy. Now, this may or may not fly ever in the United States for various reasons, but it's definitely something that's pretty common. The bidet is so
weird.
common in Europe, for example, that here in Italy, at least, it's actually part of their code. There's actually a code,
What code?
that came out in 1975, a decree, and it said, in each house, at least one bathroom must have the following fixtures: a toilet, a bidet, a bathtub or shower, and a sink. The bidet seems
It's good, but I think, it's normal over there.
like a pretty polarizing kind of thing. My son, for example, is afraid
it
of them and
polarizing?
doesn't want to go anywhere near them.
What?
My buddy
Why?
Roger Wakefield, the plumber, he says he actually has carried them around on vacation with him to make sure he has one with him.
And I carried a bidet toilet seat with me
no
and
way.
installed it in my hotel room.
I have not seen
So-
that.
But they're common. Well, no, I don't know, maybe not. But they're more commonplace these days.
Up your game, brother.
So let me know in the comments if this is something that you're a big fan of or you're not a big fan of. Love to hear
Why wouldn't you be a fan of this? It's hygienic. Yes, it's good.
your opinion on that. Speaking of plumbing, number 7 on our list is garbage disposals or sink disposals. I grew up always using a garbage disposal, always putting food down the sink. That's just totally normal for me, and I think
Yeah,
for most
that's not a thing in Europe.
of the people that I associate with in America, totally normal. Here, you're very rarely
It's a very suburban concept of a trash. Everything he's mentioning is very suburban.
ever going to find a garbage disposal. Food here is typically taken and scraped into a garbage or into an organic compost bin of some sort, and it's either thrown away or it's turned into compost that can be used by farmers or in the back garden. Now, that does happen occasionally
Well, I think maybe if you're living near a farm, but what happens if you live in the middle of the city? There's no farms.
in the United States, but it's way more common for us to actually include everything in the waste that we put down the sink, flip on the garbage disposal, let it get rid of everything, and
And
we're
that's
done. Number 8 on
It's very out of sight, out of mind.
our list are doorknobs in the middle of the door. This is something that we're definitely not used to in America
What?
because we always have them next to the
Yeah.
actual latch, next to
Of
the
course.
mechanism of the door. I saw a pretty
To the
funny
side?
comment that said the doors in Europe are like hobbit homes where you expect to see them in the middle of the door. Now, personally, I kind of
it's
like
true.
the way that they look. It's symmetrical. It looks nice. It adds a little more flourish to the door. But let me know
Looks
what you
weird.
think about doorknobs being in the middle of the door. Speaking of doors, that's number 9
Okay, but why? I think that's weird, but why? Why is it there?
on our list. The doors and the locks here are so much more robust and, in my opinion, interesting
Sturdy.
than the doors and locks that we see in America. A lot of times they feature different hardware than we're used to, like the hinges, and then the keys themselves feel totally different to us. I mean,
I'm trying not to be neutral and not rude, but it's because they're built in their houses and it's not like in the US where everything's made out of cardboard.
check these things out. The old style keys are often still in use, whereas in America, we just have our standard cut keys for pretty much everything. And honestly, they're pretty boring. One
I'm learning now there's different types of keys.
place we stayed at in Rome could have easily passed as a vault door complete with 8 locking pins. Pocket
Here's amazing.
doors are seen way more commonly in Europe, as well as some of the huge solid wood doors from 200 or 500 years ago. And those are still in use today, which is pretty awesome. So many cool doors here in Europe, and they seem to have so much more character and history than a lot of the kind of plain and boring doors that we have in America.
And I think it makes you feel safer.
So that's something that's weird to us, but in I think generally a good way. Love to see these hardwood doors and ones with flourishes and embellishments and carvings and different things like that. Number 10 on my list is this right here. That is a sound we're not used to hearing in America. The construction of the homes is, of course, completely different, and that's a whole ball of wax that we could get into. And why it makes sense the way that they're built. But for us, we are definitely not used to these super solid masonry-oriented walls.
No.
Where they are typically built out of bricks or stones or concrete, and then they're faced with
It's not sturdy. It's, again, made out of cardboard, which I know is an exaggeration, but sometimes it feels like it.
concrete typically, and they have that smooth hardness to them, and there's nothing happening here. There's no knock, really. It's just totally solid. We're used to timber framed walls with drywall on the outside, and there's a hollowness to them. Even if they're
Yeah.
insulated on the inside,
It's just
they
hollow.
still are what we consider hollow, and they have a certain knocking
Yeah.
sound or feature to them. These walls here are completely different, and this is especially impactful on our interior walls, like around your living room, your bedroom, your bathroom, things like that. So that's one that's very different for us, where everything
That's why the sound travels and you hear your neighbors constantly.
seems super solid. And that's a good thing in general, but it also has this kind of cold, almost sterile feel to it when we're used to the wood timber sounds and kind of the different acoustics that we have from the different walls in America.
Never thought of the
All 10
acoustics.
items on this list, they have pros and cons, both to the way Americans do things and the way Europeans do things. I totally recognize that. I think it's pretty awesome to be able to come to different countries and to experience their different cultures, their different way of doing things, and the different layouts and different features of their homes. Now, if I missed anything or you have some things that stood out to you that I didn't include here, love to hear about that in the comments below. And if I made any mistakes on this, which I'm sure I've made a few, feel free to correct me down there in the comments below as well. If you enjoyed this video, you might be fascinated to learn all about what makes the Type G British plugs so brilliant. And I can tell you there's a few things that were very surprising to me about how well thought out those particular plugs are. So be sure to check that video out right here. I'm Nils with Learn to DIY. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so a lot of things were weird. That's my takeaway. Obviously, it just depends on where you're from. I think, obviously, for Europeans, the American counterpart's gonna be weird. I think there are some things that I find very, I think, curious about it. The whole, I think, again, some things can be explained, I think, by how things work over there. It's different both places. For instance, the air conditioning, I think it has to do with, he mentioned it's because obviously the houses are older, so they didn't have air conditioning back in those days. But I'm thinking, well, yeah, but once you just remodel, that would be my train of thought. Well, you can remodel and we can maybe install an air conditioning system in my house. But I don't know if it's because they're so old that there's a thing about electrical pipes, and I don't know, the electrical system. I think you can't, just because again, it's just something about, I don't know, walls, maybe you can't tear them down, or maybe it's because, again, maybe it's because they're older. So they are so old that you can't just kind of I can't open, well, not open, I can just tear down a wall because it has historical, I think there are historical laws in place or something that you can't really mess around with the structure, or because, again, because they're so old, again, you can't remodel anything that involves just opening walls because it is an historical thing and the whole thing could crumble. I don't know. Maybe that's why. Because I would think, well, but you can just remodel and just install one of these. But no, apparently you can't. I would love to know the actual reasoning behind it. And because it can't just be because, again, maybe it's not practical because I know that the bills are super high. So it's not, people wouldn't want to do this because the electrical bill will be huge. So no, I don't want to do this. I'm not interested. But if someone would be, I don't care, money is no issue. I can definitely afford this. So I'm wondering why they just do not do this. And it's maybe because obviously there's a reasoning behind it, but I would love to know the specifics. And the dryer, I think it's the same. It's the thing about electrical bills. They're going to be very high. But I think it's maybe, I guess at this point, maybe it's a cultural thing. But I think it comes from how expensive electricity is in Europe. That's what I would assume, because otherwise I don't think there's an actual good reasoning behind this. Why wouldn't you want a dryer? I think, I think it's nice sometimes. You can get, the dryers are nice as well, but I think they can ruin clothes sometimes. It's always better, I think, for fabrics themselves, most of them, yes. I think you can lay them down to dry, or you can just hang them. But also, I think it's very nice to have air dried clothes. I think they have a particular type of smell, especially if there's sun outside and the sun sort of gets in I can't explain it because it's a particular kind of smell that it's weird. It smells like sun-dried clothes and technically air-dried, but yes, the sun, I think, has a particular type of smell, and it prints on the clothes themselves. So it is very nice, but I think that's sort of a luxury, and you can't have that every single day of the year, because obviously in winter and stuff happens, it's raining, I don't know, there's a slew of things that happen, so you can't constantly do this as in, oh yeah, the sun, I have sun and air-dried clothes all the time. Yeah, that's a luxury, but it's nicer, I think. And I think dryers, so why are we using dryers? Well, of course, during winter, but I don't know why the US constantly uses dryers, because technically they have this space, right? We have this space, and why wouldn't we doing this? But I don't know, maybe it's because it doesn't look visually appealing to have clothes drying. I think it's very particular in Europe specifically. There's balconies and people hang their clothes in the balconies, and maybe some people, I think that's really it's nice. I think it's nice, but I think a lot of people, I think in the US, with the whole suburbs mentality, everything has to look the same and everything has to be very equal. Maybe it's because it's visually not that nice to them, and I would think maybe that was the thought process, and I'm talking about that generation of probably baby boomers or something, and that's why they were no, it's unseemly to have sort of air dry clothes just drying. No, maybe that's why. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I don't know, it's curious to me why the US sort of got used to using dryers. It can't be just, or maybe it's just, again, maybe it's not a cultural thing, it's just the electricity situation, it's different, and that's it. The plugs, I think I found them weird. Again, would love to know how come they're so different, because I would think that's universal. I know it's not all the time, yes, but to me, I see the whole rounded thing. I think I can't remember the name of them, but they are sort of a square, and it's sort of a stick, and it's so tiny and it's so thin. It's very thin, and to me that's weird. I think I need a sturdy I think the plugs need to be sturdier, and not round. To me the round thing seems flimsy, but he's talking about, no, they're better. But to me, looking at them is weird, and the whole electrical situation looks so strange. How come there's several outlets and there's several things? It's confusing to me. I have no idea, but also, again, the voltage, I am confused. I know that. But yeah, I think in Europe, they'll tell you, you have to take care of the things that you're bringing, electrical things that you're bringing, because you have to check the voltage, because otherwise you can burn your dryer, your hair dryer, or I don't know, whatever it is, your hair curler, whatever. You can just burn them. So I know that they'll tell you, be careful, and you have to check out the voltage. But I don't know why different countries use different voltages and use different outlets, because I would think that's, again, isn't that a universal human thing? Electricity, how come its voltage is different? It's why, and how in practice, how is it different? Electricity is electricity, right? That's why I'm not an electrician, because I don't understand the concept of voltages being different and how come they change so much. To me, it should be universal, but obviously there's a reason why it's not. That's really not the case. But I really like that, and yes, of course, the garbage disposal as well. I think it's related to the servers specifically. But again, maybe that's just my theory. And yes, and the doorknobs, I don't really understand why in the middle. That to me was also weird. I think I don't really know. He said it visually they look better. To me, it just looks weird. I'm sorry. I need them to be to the side, because I think with this in the center, I don't know, you would think that's I think I don't, in a house, I think it's weird, because I am imagining maybe a door like this at an office or an office building, a medical building. I don't know. I think it gives me office vibes, but it doesn't give me homey vibes. I don't know, but maybe, again, it's just a little weird to me. And the bidets, I think, again, they're more commonplace these days, which is good. I don't know why anyone would think, oh no, I don't want a bidet. Why wouldn't you want a bidet? Like, they're incredible. They're good. And I'm glad that more people are getting into this. And also, a lot of countries, not just in Europe, it's a custom. They have bidets. I think in the US is one of the few countries. Well, I don't know if few. There's because I think there's more of them. But it's one of the countries where I think they're probably the outliers in thinking, oh, what is this? What is this? It's a bidet. What is a bidet? But I think in recent years, and by recent, I mean probably the last 15 years probably, it's more commonplace and it's not that weird. And I don't know why you wouldn't like this. Again, it's hygienic, so why wouldn't you like it? It's weird to me. But this was a great video, but that was it for today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.